Imagine waking up tomorrow and no longer needing anything to prove that you matter. Imagine walking into a room and not scanning it for approval. Imagine wanting something deeply, fully, honestly, and yet feeling no panic about whether it arrives. No clenched jaw, no racing thoughts at 2 a.m., rehearsing conversations that haven't happened yet. Just a quiet, steady wanting, the kind that doesn't cost you your peace. Now compare that to where you actually are. How many nights have you replayed a message you sent, wondering why they haven't answered? How many times have you refreshed an inbox, a phone, a bank account, hoping this time would be different? How many rooms have you walked into feeling invisible, standing right there in plain sight while the conversation moved around you like you were furniture? How many times have you worked harder, tried harder, smiled wider, only to watch someone else get chosen, get noticed, get the promotion, the love, the opportunity, while you got a polite nod and nothing else? Most people spend their entire lives grabbing at life with white knuckles and wondering why life keeps slipping through their fingers. They chase recognition and get overlooked. They chase love and get ghosted. They chase success and get exhausted, not because they didn't want it enough, because they wanted it in a way that pushed it away. Here is the truth the Stoics understood 2,000 years before modern psychology caught up to it. The tighter your grip, the smaller your world becomes. Marcus Aurelius did not rule an empire by gripping every outcome. He ruled by mastering the one thing that was actually his to master, his own mind. And what we are going to explore today is not a fantasy about the universe magically rearranging itself for you. It is something far more grounded, far more available, and far more powerful. It is the art of relaxing your grip enough that life finally has room to reach you. Before we go further, if this idea already feels like something you needed to hear, hit subscribe now. This channel exists for people who are tired of chasing and ready to understand why the chase itself has been the obstacle. Stay until the end, because the deepest part of this isn't the theory, it's the specific moment where everything shifts, and I don't want you to miss it. The grip that pushes away what it wants. There is a strange and painful irony that most people live inside without ever naming it. The more desperately you want to be seen, the more invisible you become. Think about it honestly. The friend who needs constant reassurance is often the one whose calls go unanswered. The employee who over-explains every task, who hovers, who asks, "Did I do a good job?" after every project, is rarely the one who gets trusted with more responsibility. The person who chases love with both hands outstretched, who texts first, who apologizes for things that were never their fault, who shrinks their preferences to avoid friction, is often the one left wondering why they were never truly chosen. It isn't because they aren't worthy, it's because desperation has a frequency, and people, whether they can name it or not, feel that frequency and instinctively step back from it. But here's where most people get it wrong. They think the answer is to want less, to stop caring, to armor up and pretend indifference. That isn't what we're talking about here. Wanting something with your whole heart is not the problem. Needing it to arrive on your schedule from a specific person in a specific way in order to feel okay, that is the problem. That is where the grip forms. Picture a river moving through a canyon. The river doesn't grip the rocks in its path. It doesn't slow down to argue with the stone or demand that the boulder move first. It simply continues, curving where it must, pressing gently where it can, and over centuries, it is the river that shapes the canyon, not the other way around. The rock stays exactly where it is. The river becomes the more powerful force, precisely because it never fought for control. It flowed. That is what your desire is meant to feel like. Not stagnant water in a locked container, pressing against glass walls, demanding release. Moving water, alive, directional, patient, and utterly relentless in its quiet insistence on reaching the sea. Epictetus, a man who was born into slavery and later became one of the most influential philosophers in history, taught something that sounds almost too simple until you actually try to live it. He said that people are disturbed not by the things that happen to them, but by their opinions about those things. When you are overlooked for a promotion, the sting isn't really about the promotion. It's about the story you immediately attach to it. They don't value me. I'm not good enough. I'll always be passed over. That story is the grip. That story is what keeps you tense, keeps you scanning for evidence that confirms your fear, keeps you performing harder for people who were never actually paying attention. Let this sink in for a moment. Let it sit there, not to make you comfortable, but to make you aware. Not because life owes you nothing, but because life responds to what you release, not to what you clutch. Why being overlooked isn't what you think it is. There's a particular kind of pain that doesn't come from rejection. It comes from indifference. Rejection, at least, acknowledges you existed enough to be turned down. Being overlooked is quieter and somehow crueler. You said something in the meeting and no one responded. You showed up and no one noticed you'd arrived. You gave everything to a relationship and one day realized you'd been the only one keeping score. Most people respond to this by trying harder, speaking louder, showing up more, doing more, becoming more visible through sheer volume of effort. And it rarely works, because the effort itself carries the scent of desperation, and desperation, again, is a frequency people unconsciously avoid. But what if being overlooked was never actually about you? Carl Jung wrote that everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. The same logic applies here, though from the other direction. Everything that overlooks us reveals something about the internal state we were broadcasting, not because you did something wrong, because energy precedes attention. People are drawn to steadiness the way plants lean toward light. When you walk into a room already needing something from it, that need creates a subtle pressure, and people, even without realizing why, angle away from pressure, the same way water flows around an obstruction rather than through it. Think of a mirror hanging in an empty room. It doesn't reach out to grab the reflections that pass in front of it. It doesn't beg the light to notice it. It simply remains clear, and because it remains clear, everything that enters the room is reflected in it perfectly. A dirty, smudged mirror still exists in the room. It's still physically present. But it reflects nothing clearly, because it's covered in the residue of every hand that touched it, trying to clean it too aggressively, trying to force clarity instead of allowing it. You are not overlooked because you are unworthy of being seen. You are overlooked when your inner mirror is so fogged with anxious need that nothing can reflect off it cleanly, including you. This is not your fault. Most of us were never taught this. We were taught the opposite. Work harder, try harder, speak up more, be more impressive. And so, we polish the wrong surface, again and again, wondering why the reflection never improves. Viktor Frankl, who survived experiences most of us can barely imagine, wrote that between stimulus and response there is a space, and in that space lies our power to choose our response. And in our response lies our growth and our freedom. That space is exactly where the fog gets wiped clean. Not through more effort thrown at the outside world, but through a pause, an honest look inward at what you were actually asking the world to give you that you had not yet given yourself. You weren't ignored because you weren't enough. You were ignored because you were asking the room to complete something only you can complete. Not because the world is cruel, but because the world reflects what it's shown, and a clenched hand shows nothing but its own tension. The physiology of grasping. Let's get practical for a moment, because this isn't just philosophy floating in the air. This is happening in your body right now, in ways you can probably recognize if you're honest with yourself. When you want something desperately, your nervous system enters a low-grade state of threat. Your shoulders creep toward your ears, your breath shortens, your attention narrows until the object of your desire, the job, the relationship, the recognition, becomes the only thing your mind can process. Everything else blurs. And here's the cruel part. This narrowed, tense state is exactly the state in which humans make their worst decisions, say the wrong things, come across as needy, and miss opportunities that were actually right in front of them because their attention was locked onto the one thing they were chasing. Seneca, writing to a friend nearly 2,000 years ago, observed that we suffer more often in imagination than in reality. Most of the tension you carry isn't caused by what's actually happening. It's caused by the imagined catastrophe of what might happen if you don't get what you want. And that imagined catastrophe keeps your body in a state that makes getting what you want less likely, not more. Think about a time you desperately needed to fall asleep. Maybe you had an early flight or an important interview the next day. The harder you tried to force sleep, the further away it drifted. Your mind kept checking the clock, calculating how many hours remained, tightening with each passing minute. And then, at some point, you stopped fighting it. You accepted you might not sleep much. And in that acceptance, in that release of the grip, sleep often arrived within minutes. That is not a coincidence. That is the entire mechanism we're discussing, playing out in a bedroom instead of a career or a relationship. Marcus Aurelius, writing privately to himself, not for an audience, reminded himself constantly that he had power over his mind, not outside events, and that realizing this would give him strength. He wasn't writing that as inspiration for a poster. He was writing it because he was the most powerful man in the known world, and even he understood that gripping outcomes, armies, senators, the loyalty of people around him was a losing game. The only sustainable power was internal. Your nervous system does not know the difference between a wolf chasing you and a promotion you desperately need. It reacts to both with the same tightening, the same tunnel vision, the same primal urgency. And urgency, whether it's aimed at a predator or a paycheck, is not a state from which magnetism, creativity, or genuine connection can flow. Not because urgency is weakness, but because urgency was designed for survival, not for building the life you actually want. The story of two people and the same rejection. Let me offer you a picture. Two people apply for the same opportunity. Let's say it's a promotion they've both worked toward for over a year. Both are qualified. Both have put in real effort. The day the announcement comes, neither of them gets it. Someone else does. The first person spirals immediately. They replay every interaction with their manager, searching for the moment they must have failed. They start over-explaining themselves in the office the next day, subtly campaigning for sympathy, dropping comments about how hard they worked, how unfair the process felt. Within weeks, their manager and co-workers begin subtly avoiding conversations with them, not out of malice, but because the residue of resentment is exhausting to be around. Their value in the room quietly drops, not because of the rejection itself, but because of what they did with it afterward. The second person feels the disappointment fully. They don't pretend it doesn't hurt. But they don't turn it into a performance for others to witness. They go home, they sit with it, they ask themselves honestly what they can learn, and then they return to work the next day and simply continue doing excellent work, without campaigning, without visible bitterness. 6 months later, when another opportunity opens, they're the first person the same manager thinks of, specifically because they handled disappointment with quiet dignity instead of visible need. Same rejection. Two entirely different trajectories. The difference wasn't talent, it wasn't even effort. It was what each person did with their grip. Epictetus taught his students to constantly ask, "Is this within my control?" The promotion itself was not within either person's control. Their reaction to not receiving it, however, was completely within their control. And that reaction, that internal choice, ended up determining far more of their future than the original decision ever did. Carl Jung once wrote that what you resist persists, and what you accept transforms. The first person resisted the rejection, resisted the discomfort of not being chosen, and by resisting it, they extended its power over them for months. The second person accepted it, fully, without denial, and by accepting it, they were free to move forward, unburdened. This isn't about faking calm. It's not about pretending the sting doesn't exist. It's about not letting the sting dictate your next 100 decisions. Not because their pain wasn't real, but because what they built with that pain determined everything that came after it. Why letting go feels like losing, but isn't. Here is where most people get stuck, and I want to be honest with you about it, because pretending this part is easy would be dishonest. Letting go of the grip feels, in the moment, like giving up. It feels like you're abandoning the thing you want most. Every instinct in your body screams that if you stop pushing, if you stop checking your phone, if you stop rehearsing the perfect thing to say, the thing you want will disappear entirely. This fear is not irrational. It comes from somewhere real. Most of us were taught, explicitly or through painful experience, that the only way to get anything is to fight for it relentlessly. So relaxing feels dangerous. It feels like you're finally admitting defeat. But here is the distinction that changes everything. Relaxing your grip is not the same as abandoning your desire. Think of holding a small bird in your hands. If you squeeze, out of fear that it will fly away, you will crush it. The tighter your fear-driven grip, the more damage you do to the very thing you were trying to protect. But if you open your palm, gently, keeping the bird there without crushing it, it may choose to stay, it may choose to fly. Either way, you haven't destroyed it through fear. You've simply allowed it to exist in its natural state. And paradoxically, birds held this way are far more likely to stay than birds gripped out of terror. Seneca wrote that the greatest obstacle to living is expectation, which hangs upon tomorrow and loses today. When you grip an outcome so tightly that your entire present moment becomes contingent on a future you cannot control, you sacrifice the only thing you actually have, which is now, in exchange for anxiety about a moment that hasn't arrived and may never arrive in the shape you imagine. This does not mean stop caring. It does not mean stop working toward what you want. Marcus Aurelius did not sit passively in his tent while Rome burned around him. He acted decisively and constantly. But his actions came from clarity, not from panic. He did the work that was his to do, and then released his attachment to how the outcome would unfold, because he understood that outcomes were never fully his to control in the first place. Viktor Frankl, who lost nearly everything in the concentration camps, wrote that everything can be taken from a person but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances. If a man who survived that could find the space to choose his internal attitude amid unimaginable horror, then surely we can find the space to release our grip on a job offer, a text message, a relationship that hasn't unfolded the way we hoped. Letting go doesn't mean the desire disappears. It means the desire stops strangling you. Not because you stopped wanting it, but because you finally stopped needing it to breathe. The wound underneath the chasing. Let's go deeper, because surface-level advice like just relax rarely works if we don't address why the grip exists in the first place. Most people who chase, who overextend, who perform for approval, who cannot rest until they've secured the outcome, are not doing this because they're shallow or needy by nature. They're doing it because somewhere earlier in life, being overlooked carried a cost that felt unbearable. Maybe it was a parent whose attention had to be earned through achievement. Maybe it was a classroom where being invisible meant being forgotten entirely. Maybe it was a relationship where love felt conditional, dependent on performance, dependent on being useful, dependent on never causing inconvenience. Carl Jung called this the shadow, the parts of ourselves formed in response to early pain that continue operating beneath our conscious awareness, driving behavior we don't fully understand. Until you make the unconscious conscious, Jung wrote, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. That relentless need to be chosen, to be noticed, to prove your worth through effort, is often not really about the promotion or the relationship in front of you today. It's an old wound wearing a modern costume. This is not something to feel ashamed of. Every human being carries some version of it. But it is something worth examining honestly, because as long as it remains unconscious, it will keep steering your reactions, keep tightening your grip, keep sabotaging the very things you're trying to attract. Ask yourself, gently, without judgment, when did being overlooked first feel dangerous to me? What did I learn I had to do in order to be seen? And is that strategy still serving me, or is it the very thing pushing away the people and opportunities I most want to reach? Epictetus taught that we should examine our impressions before accepting them as true. When the old wound whispers that you must chase harder or you'll be forgotten, that impression deserves examination, not automatic obedience. It was formed in a different context, often a childhood context, where you had far less power than you have now. You are not that child anymore. You do not need to earn your place in the room the way you once believed you did. Picture a candle burning steadily in a still room and compare it to a candle held out in the wind, flickering desperately, threatening to extinguish itself with every gust. The wind doesn't ask the candle to prove its worth. The candle simply struggles because it's exposed to conditions it wasn't meant to endure alone. When you finally step back into shelter, into your own inner steadiness, the flame stops fighting for survival and simply burns, calm, visible, warm, exactly as it was always meant to. Not because the old wound was your fault, but because carrying it forever was never actually required of you. The difference between confidence and performance. There's a specific trap worth naming clearly, because so many people fall into it while believing they're doing the opposite of grasping. They mistake performance for confidence. Performance says, look how relaxed I am, look how little I care, watch me pretend this doesn't matter to me at all. It's still, underneath, a desperate bid for approval, just wearing a mask of indifference instead of a mask of eagerness. People sense this too, sometimes even more acutely than they sense obvious neediness, because performed detachment carries a strange, hollow energy. It doesn't feel calm, it feels rehearsed. Real confidence doesn't need an audience to witness it. It doesn't announce itself. It simply exists, quietly, in how a person carries themselves when no one is applauding and no one is watching. Marcus Aurelius wrote that very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking. He wasn't performing wisdom for the benefit of the Senate. He was writing privately, for no audience but himself, working out his own mind, because that was where the actual work needed to happen. The most powerful people in history rarely needed to announce their power. Their steadiness spoke before their words did. Think of a mountain again, standing through changing seasons, through storms and clear skies alike. The mountain doesn't perform stability for the benefit of travelers passing by. It isn't trying to look impressive. It simply is what it is, consistently, regardless of who's watching. And it is precisely because the mountain isn't performing that its presence feels so grounding to everyone around it. Seneca warned against exactly this kind of performance when he wrote that we suffer more in imagination than in reality, and much of that imagined suffering comes from constantly managing how we appear to others rather than simply existing as we are. The energy spent performing calm is often more exhausting than the energy spent performing desperation. Both are still performances. Both still come from the same root, a fear that your natural state isn't enough to be seen. The goal isn't to appear unbothered. The goal is to actually become someone whose peace doesn't depend on the outcome of the next email, the next date, the next opportunity. Not because you stopped caring how things turn out, but because you finally stopped needing others to witness how little you cared. What actually happens when you stop grasping? Let's talk about what this looks like practically, in real moments, because abstract philosophy means little if it doesn't translate into an ordinary Tuesday afternoon. You send a message to someone important to you. The old pattern would have you checking your phone every few minutes, constructing anxious theories about their silence, drafting follow-up messages in your head before they've even had a chance to respond. The new pattern, the relaxed pattern, looks different. You send the message, and then you return your attention to your own life. Not because you don't care about their response, but because your peace is no longer hostage to their timeline. You walk into an interview or an important meeting. The old pattern would have you rehearsing every answer with white-knuckled intensity, terrified of a single misstep, treating the room like a courtroom where your worth is on trial. The new pattern has you preparing thoroughly, and then walking in with the understanding that you are not auditioning for your right to exist. You are simply presenting what you have to offer, clearly, and letting the outcome be what it will be. Epictetus said that wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. This doesn't mean stop wanting things. It means untangling your sense of self-worth from whether those wants are immediately fulfilled. When your worth is no longer riding on the outcome of every interaction, you naturally show up steadier, clearer, more genuinely yourself. And ironically, this is exactly the energy that draws opportunities, connections, and yes, even the things you were chasing, toward you rather than away from you. Think of sunlight falling across an open field. The sun doesn't chase the flowers, doesn't beg them to turn toward it, doesn't perform brightness harder when a cloud passes overhead. It simply continues shining consistently, and the flowers, on their own timeline, in their own way, turn toward it. Not because the sun demanded their attention, but because steady warmth is simply what living things are drawn toward. You do not need to become the flower chasing the sun. Relax long enough, and you become the sun. Things begin turning toward you. Carl Jung wrote about individuation, the lifelong process of becoming who you actually are, beneath the layers of persona built to please others. This process cannot happen while you're gripping outcomes with both hands, because gripping requires constant outward focus, constant monitoring of external response. Individuation, becoming your true self, requires the opposite. It requires enough internal stillness to actually hear your own voice underneath all the noise you've been generating in an attempt to be chosen. Not because the outside world stopped mattering, but because your center of gravity finally moved back inside where it always belonged. The practice of return. None of this happens through a single realization. You will not read this and instantly transform into someone whose grip has permanently loosened. That's not how nervous systems work, and it's not how old patterns unwind. What actually happens is something quieter, slower, and far more sustainable, a practice of return. You will grip again. You will catch yourself refreshing your phone, rehearsing anxious scenarios, performing for approval you don't actually need. This is not failure. This is simply what it means to be human, carrying decades of conditioning that doesn't dissolve overnight. The practice isn't about never gripping again. The practice is about noticing the grip faster each time and returning to release a little more quickly than you did the time before. Marcus Aurelius wrote his private reflections precisely because he understood this. He wasn't writing to declare himself already perfected. He was writing daily because the work of returning to center had to be repeated over and over for the rest of his life. Wisdom, for the Stoics, was never a destination you arrived at once and then kept forever. It was a practice, renewed each morning, each time you caught yourself gripping too tightly. Notice the tension in your shoulders right now as you're hearing this. Notice your breath. Notice whether your mind is already racing ahead to some outcome you're anxious about. This noticing, this simple act of returning attention to the present moment, to your own body, to your own breath, is the entire practice. It sounds almost too simple to matter, but this simple return, repeated daily, is exactly what the Stoics practiced for the entirety of their lives, and exactly what modern psychology, through Jung's emphasis on conscious awareness and Frankl's space between stimulus and response, continues to confirm works. Seneca advised reviewing each day before sleep, asking honestly, what did I do well, where did I fall short, and how might I do better tomorrow? Not as self-punishment, but as a gentle practice of return, a way of continually loosening the grip that tightens throughout an ordinary day of living among other grasping, anxious humans. You will not master this once. You will practice it for the rest of your life, the way you practice breathing, the way you practice walking, the way anything essential to living well requires ongoing, patient repetition. Not because you're failing when you grip again, but because returning, again and again, is the entire practice itself. When the world finally meets you halfway, something begins to shift when this practice takes root, and it rarely looks like the dramatic transformation people expect. It looks small at first. A conversation that used to feel like a performance suddenly feels easy. A rejection that once would have derailed your entire week barely registers a ripple. An opportunity arrives, seemingly out of nowhere, though in truth it arrived because you were finally present enough, calm enough, magnetic enough in your steadiness to notice it and receive it. This isn't magic. It's not the universe rearranging itself because you said the right affirmation. It's simpler and more grounded than that. When you stop gripping, you free enormous amounts of attention and energy that were previously spent managing anxiety, rehearsing scenarios, monitoring how you're perceived. That freed energy becomes available for actually noticing what's around you, actually connecting with people authentically, actually doing your best work without the static of fear interrupting every decision. Epictetus taught that we should concern ourselves only with what's in our power, our judgments, our choices, our responses, and let everything else unfold as it will. This isn't resignation. It's the most efficient possible use of a limited human life. Every ounce of energy spent gripping an outcome that was never fully yours to control is energy stolen from the things that were always within your power, your presence, your character, your actual contribution to the moment in front of you. Think of a harbor, sheltered and calm, where ships come to rest after long journeys across turbulent water. The harbor doesn't chase the ships out at sea, desperately trying to pull them in. It simply remains, steady, sheltered, ready, and the ships, when they're ready, when the timing is right, find their way in on their own. You do not need to become the ship chasing every possible harbor across the ocean. Relax long enough, become steady enough, and you become the harbor. What is meant for you finds its way in. Marcus Aurelius, writing to himself in what might have been his most exhausted, overwhelmed moments as emperor, kept returning to one simple truth: confine yourself to the present. Not the anxious future, not the disappointing past, but this exact moment, exactly as it is. That single practice, repeated enough times, across enough days, across enough disappointments and small victories, is what eventually reshapes a grasping, anxious life into a steady, magnetic one. Not because you finally figured out how to force the world to give you what you wanted, but because you finally stopped needing it to, and in that release, it started arriving anyway. The comparison trap that tightens the grip further. There's one more layer to this that deserves honest attention, because it quietly sabotages even people who think they've already learned to relax. It's comparison, and it's one of the fastest ways to re-tighten a grip you'd only just begun to loosen. You finally start feeling calmer about your own timeline. You've stopped checking your phone every 5 minutes. You've stopped rehearsing anxious scripts before every conversation. And then you scroll past someone your age who just closed a deal, just got engaged, just moved into a home you're still years away from affording, and in an instant, the old tension floods back in. Suddenly, you're gripping again, not because anything in your actual life changed, but because someone else's timeline briefly became the measure of your own worth. Epictetus taught his students to distinguish sharply between what belongs to us and what does not. Someone else's success, someone else's timing, someone else's relationship or career or recognition was never within your control to begin with, and it was never actually a measurement of your own progress in the first place. You were comparing your unfinished chapter to someone else's highlight reel and calling the resulting despair evidence of your own failure. Picture two trees growing in the same forest. One grows tall and fast in an open patch of sunlight. The other grows slower, its roots spreading wider and deeper beneath the surface because it had to search harder for water in rockier soil. From the outside, someone glancing at the forest might assume the taller tree is winning, but roots that spread wide and deep create a tree that survives storms the fast-growing tree cannot withstand. Neither tree is failing. They are simply growing according to entirely different conditions neither one chose and neither one controls. Carl Jung wrote that comparison is the thief of joy long before that phrase became a common saying, though in his own language he spoke of it as losing your own individuation process. The moment you begin measuring your development against another person's persona, the mask they present to the world rather than the reality they actually live. You are not seeing someone else's doubts at 2 a.m. You are not seeing their arguments, their debts, their private griefs. You are seeing a curated fragment and measuring your entire unfiltered existence against it. The tightening that comparison creates isn't really about the other person at all. It's about a story you tell yourself that says you should be further along than you are, that your current pace is evidence of some deficiency, that if you were truly worthy, things would already look different. This story, like so many others we've discussed, deserves to be questioned rather than obeyed the moment it arises. Seneca reminded his readers that no person is free who is not master of themselves, and mastery here doesn't mean domination or forced positivity. It means the simple, repeated choice to return your attention to your own path the instant it drifts towards someone else's. Every time you catch the comparison beginning and gently redirect your focus back to your own breath, your own next right action, your own timeline, you are practicing exactly the same muscle of release we've been building throughout everything we've discussed today. Not because someone else's success is a threat to yours, but because your worth was never something their achievements had the power to diminish in the first place. Trusting the timing you cannot see. There is one final piece worth sitting with, because it addresses the fear that often hides beneath all of this. The fear that if you relax, if you stop forcing, time will simply run out. That if you're not gripping tightly enough, the window will close and the opportunity will pass you by forever. This fear feels urgent because our minds are wired to treat uncertainty as danger. Not knowing when something will arrive, or whether it will arrive at all, activates the same ancient alarm systems that once kept our ancestors alive when facing actual physical threats. But a delayed opportunity is not a predator stalking you through tall grass. Your nervous system doesn't know the difference, but you, with conscious awareness, can begin to teach it the difference, one moment at a time. Marcus Aurelius wrote that everything harmonizes with me, which is harmonious to you, O universe. Nothing for me is too early nor too late, which is in due time for you. He was not being passive about his responsibilities. He governed an empire, faced wars, plagues, and betrayals, all while holding this deeper trust that his own effort, combined with a timing beyond his control, would unfold as it needed to. This wasn't laziness dressed up as philosophy. It was the hard-won peace of someone who had done everything within his power and then released his grip on forces beyond it. Think of a seed planted beneath the soil in early winter. From the surface, nothing appears to be happening. No visible growth, no evidence of progress, just still, dark earth. But beneath that silent surface, the seed is doing exactly what it needs to do, absorbing moisture, breaking down its outer shell, preparing root systems that will eventually support growth. No one can rush into existence prematurely. If you dug it up in January, impatient for proof that something was happening, you would kill the very process you were trying to accelerate. Viktor Frankl observed that those who have a why to live can bear with almost any how, and this applies directly to timing. When you're anchored to a deeper why, a clear sense of the person you're becoming and the values you're building your life around, the exact timing of any single outcome matters less, because you're no longer betting your entire sense of meaning on one specific date, one specific yes, one specific arrival. This doesn't mean stop taking action. It doesn't mean sit back passively and wait for the universe to deliver everything to your doorstep. It means doing the work that's genuinely yours to do, consistently, and then releasing the exact timeline to something larger than your own anxious calculations. The seed still has to be planted. The soil still has to be tended, but the actual sprouting, the moment when growth becomes visible above the surface, was never something forcing could accelerate in the first place. Not because patience guarantees every outcome you hope for, but because impatience guarantees nothing except exhaustion along the way. Coming back to where we started. Remember the beginning of this. Imagine waking up without needing anything to prove your worth. Imagine wanting something fully, honestly, without your peace depending on when or whether it arrives. That image is not a fantasy reserved for people luckier than you, calmer than you, born into easier circumstances than you. It is available to anyone willing to practice the slow, unglamorous work of loosening their grip, one moment, one breath, one return at a time. You will still want things. You should still want things. Wanting is not the enemy here, and nothing in Stoic philosophy ever asked you to become a person who no longer desires anything. What changes is your relationship to the wanting itself. The desire stops being a rope around your neck and starts being a compass in your hand, pointing you forward without choking you along the way. The people who seem to have life arrive easily for them. The ones who get chosen, get noticed, get the opportunities that others chase for years, are rarely the ones who wanted things the least. Often they wanted just as much, sometimes more. What separated them was simply this: they stopped needing the wanting to hurt. They stopped confusing tension with commitment, confused urgency with worthiness, confused grip with love. Relax, and you will manifest what you want, not because relaxation is a magic spell, but because relaxation is the natural state from which clarity, connection, and genuine presence flow. And those three things, far more than any amount of frantic effort, are what actually build the life you've been reaching for all along. If this resonated with you, There's another video waiting on your screen right now that goes even deeper into this same territory, showing you exactly how to recognize the grip in real time before it costs you the very things you're trying to hold on to. Thank you for spending this time with Stoic Journal. Every step inward is a step closer to becoming who you were always meant to be.